You know what else is a sure thing? Hank South, baby. Hank South. Horns 24/7. Another man who's slaving over a hot laptop. He is checking out the portal. He's checking out everything. We got signing day in 8 days, Hank. Wow. And it's kind of size things up for the listeners about where things are for the Longhorns, because there's not, I mean, well, you tell us what, with 8 days to go, how's it looking?
Yeah, so Texas is number 10 right now in the 24/7 sports rankings. And I think, I was talking to Tommy Yerish earlier, just kind of one of the biggest storylines is, how high can this class go? I feel like that's kind of the big question. And if there's different scenarios, things could play out different ways. Obviously it's recruiting, it's fluid, but I think some of the big names we're watching, guys like Kobe Black, Xavier Filsaime, Solomon Williams, and some other positions that, if these guys do jump on board, that's a top 5 class. We've got, Kobe Black on deck to announce a decision tomorrow. We're still feeling good about Texas. That commitment alone would put Texas into the top 5 ahead of next week. Then, potentially flipping a guy like Xavier Filsaime. And then, the other guys still in play down the stretch. There's a handful of them. You're looking at a top 3. Dare I say higher, top 2 class? There's different scenarios that can play out. And, what I think is interesting, and I'm working on a story right now, is is there a chance at the number 1 spot? Because, you look at Georgia right now and, they've run away with it. They usually do. Them or Alabama. That's usually the top class. But there's a lot of buzz right now that Dylan Raiola, their 5-star quarterback, is going to flip to Nebraska. So, you take him out of the equation potentially. If they lose another commitment like Ellis Robinson, who's another cornerback, a 5-star cornerback that they're trying to keep from Miami, that puts them down closer to, in range of potentially overtaking. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, the run up to signing day could be a little bit more interesting if, some of these decisions go different ways. But no, I think Texas, they're in a strong position right now. Like I just mentioned, Kobe Black tomorrow, potentially. We think that's going to happen. Xavier Filsaime is visiting this weekend. We think a flip could happen. And then a handful of other guys. But I think it's an exciting time. And, I think we're going to see Texas finish with a top 5 class for sure.
Yeah, Hank, tell us a little bit about Xavier Filsaime, because he's a dude that's committed to Florida, big-time safety prospect. And if I'm him, I'm looking at what's going on with Texas like, oh, Jalen Catalon's gone. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And they play freshmen too. I see Derek Williams out there getting mad run. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So to see him possibly flip, that's not too far out,
Yeah, no, maybe Derek Williams is almost like the biggest recruiting pitch there. It's like, oh, this kid came in, highly regarded, highly rated. That could be me next season. And yeah, it is kind of wild. We've seen safety, entering portal season, safety was already a need, but then you see 3 safeties leave. You see Jalen Catalon leave, or expected to leave, with the portal. And yeah, safety becomes even maybe the highest priority in this transfer portal cycle, and just the recruiting cycle in general. Obviously Kobe Black, who can play safety, Filsaime, I think those are the 2 guys to watch. And then you got Makuba in the portal as well. So yeah, he would be, he's been a guy that, they officially offered in early October prior to the Red River shootout. They got him in for that game, gave him tickets. He was in attendance. Then he came back for an unofficial visit that kind of went a little bit under the radar prior to Thanksgiving. And then we're expecting him back in this weekend for an official visit. So Texas has really kind of come on the last 2 months and pushing for him. You factor in what's going on in Florida. It's just kind of like, who's next in terms of decommitting? The Gators are going through it right now. And they just fired Corey Raymond. So it's like, everything kind of seems like it's pointing to Texas, if there's a school that's going to flip him with the need, the push they're making, everything. And so, we'll see. It'll be an interesting visit to track this weekend when he gets to Austin.
All right. So Kobe Black, he was at the Big 12 title game.
Yes. I think. Yes.
And who's the top competition with Texas for him?
Yeah, prior to the Jimbo Fisher stuff, it was probably A&M. And I'm not sure. I'm sure he's getting messages and calls from all sorts of schools, but I think you kind of have to look at Oklahoma State as the top competition, just because his older brother on the roster, Corey. There's talk that Corey's going to end up transferring somewhere else, so maybe that takes them out of the equation. But I don't think there's a school he's visited more than Oklahoma State. So I think if you're a Texas fan, you're feeling pretty good ahead of tomorrow when he announces in the afternoon. But yeah, I think they've just done a really good job. Again, the need, he's a guy that, he's not just designated as a safety. He can play corner, he can play nickel, he can move all over the secondary. He's a versatile kid. He could probably even play offense if he wanted to. But so I think Texas has done a really good job with him. Terry Joseph has really been leading the charge there. They saw him, I think it was, all the days run together now. I think it was last night up in Waco. So, they're still, pedal to the metal there with Kobe Black, and I think they'll get. I think they'll be getting good news tomorrow when he announces.
Yeah, Hank, I don't know how you do it, man. You got two little ones too that you got to worry about all the time. Man, kudos to you, my guy. But you look at somebody like Deion Burks, the Purdue transfer who ended up in Oklahoma. It seemed like it was between Texas and OU wins that battle. Is that a bad thing, or is it just because Texas has so much to offer and they're looking for even more guys that Deion Burks kind of saw the writing on the wall and said, okay, I better take OU or possibly not go anywhere?
That's a good question, because there's not a lot of programs that, you can look, especially if Quinn Ewers comes back, that are losing as much production as Texas will be. We haven't seen NFL draft decisions yet, but, you got to imagine a lot of those guys are going. And there's just not a lot of veteran guys, and then you factor in the guys leaving in the portal as well with Isaiah Nayor and Casey Kane. That's almost like kind of if Texas wants you as a wide receiver, that's kind of almost a dream scenario. To come in for a year or two, raise your draft stock and go. I was talking to one source, and they were looking. Texas wants NFL guys. I know it's like duh, but they want one and done type guys, because they also want to develop these younger guys. They don't want to have to worry about bringing a new guy in and, working with them and having to teach them everything. They want to focus on developing the young guys they have in the roster, Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Niblett, have a guy that's experienced, can come in and kind of lead the way. And so, Deion Burks was a guy they liked by all accounts. I was a little surprised to see that news. We'd been hearing a lot of favorable buzz about Texas. He was supposed to visit Texas this weekend. He's not now. So, I think that potentially opens the door even more so for guys like Matthew Golden, the Houston wide receiver transfer. Everyone's still waiting to see whether Evan Stewart will enter the portal or not. If they do, I would imagine Texas would be a heavy player there as well. And, we actually broke down a bunch of wide receivers they could, potentially target, whether it be Mississippi State's Davion Thomas, Will Shepard at Vandy. There's a bunch. And that, that's one area this portal isn't lacking. There's a lot of wide receiver talent out there. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But that Burks news was interesting earlier today with him popping to Oklahoma.
Hank, what who do you have a player comp for Kobe Black?
Ooh. I was like I was talking about him earlier today with a friend. I think Jahdae Barron, just because I think he could be kind of I think he could play that Jahdae Barron role. He's everyone's saying he wants to be classified as a corner. We've ranked him as a safety. I'll just say I'm not part of that. I'm rankings and recruiting are separate entities at 24/7 Sports if anyone's watching. But but again, he can play that nickel role. He can do a little bit of both. He's a physical player. He can come up. He can do all sorts of things. But if I was looking at a guy on the current Texas roster, I think Jahdae Barron could be a good comp. He's a little bit bigger, but I think he could fill that role.
Yeah, Kobe Black, he knows he's a cornerback. He going to make more money. So I get where his mindset's at the moment. Hank, tell us a little bit about Emme Winston. He's set to make his commitment date very soon. It's between UCF, Ohio State, and Texas. He is a tight end, and the Horns, they're really high on him.
Yeah. He was a guy, like, again, earlier this fall, he came out, I think it was like one random night in October that he was replacing North Carolina in his top 6 with Texas. And, he's been talking to Tashard Choice, Jeff Banks. He went out to the Red River Shootout. First experience in the state of Texas was that game. So, got a healthy dose of Texas football there and the culture and all the excitement there. And then he came back for the Kansas State game at the beginning of November. So I think Texas is trending for him. He's going to announce a decision on December 18th. So what's that, on Monday? I think Texas is in line to get good news. There was a time when people thought he was going to go to Ohio State. I'm not sure, UCF is recruiting him. I think he's more, just being nice, including them, not trying to insult UCF, but Ohio State and Texas are not like UCF. I think Texas is trending for him. Tennessee was also in the mix as well, but he's really close to Jeff Banks. They seem to be making the biggest push for him out of all these these schools as well. Everyone they're like, oh, he's 6'1.5", he's not that big of a tight end, but Texas sees something in him they really like. And obviously he's a junior in high school, you got to account for him maybe growing another inch or two by the time, he's done. So no, I think Texas will get good news. I think they're in a good spot for him.
Hank, I'm not sure if you covered Galani McDonald in recruiting, but that's a name I hear a lot from current Texas players as a guy who could break out next year. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more of him, even in spot duty. But I mean, this dude is 6'2", almost 6'3". He looks like Ryan Watts is what he looks like. And I mean, could play corner, could play safety. But I didn't know if you had a vibe on him from recruiting or.
Yeah, I did not come across him, or I don't think Bama really recruited him when I was still covering them. So, I mean, like, obviously I know him and, same high school as Kobe Black and all that. So, maybe that's helping the Kobe Black cause as well. But yeah, maybe he'll get a chance in the playoff, to come in, with Williams out in the first half of the Sugar Bowl, maybe he'll get a shot.
Yeah. I mean, he is a specimen, and you see him on special teams, but I'm eager to see what this guy brings to the table, because the players talk about him like, oh, just wait. I'm like, well, if he's that good, why are we waiting? But what, as we kind of each week we're going to ask you a little bit more about the matchups and what's standing out to you, as far as Texas and Washington. Anything, kind of pique your interest or something people aren't paying attention to?
That's a good question. Something people aren't paying attention to. I can't think of anything that we're not paying. I mean, I think the biggest matchup is just, can they, contend or keep Michael Penix at bay, like hold him under 300 yards passing, maybe a little bit less. I think that first half we're going to, how big of an impact is Derek Williams missing the first half going to be? Maybe we'll see Galani McDonald make some plays if he can get in that rotation and help out. But I think just, this is going to be the most talented quarterback I've seen. And, it'll be interesting to see, what this coaching staff draws up Texas, that is, in the fact that, it's been less than a year since they saw them on the field. Like, they know kind of what they're bringing to the table. Obviously there's different rosters, there's different guys, Washington's a better team this year. But I think the fact that Texas has a handful of coaches on their staff with playoff experience, like, this isn't like a moment that's going to be too big or something that like they haven't been through yet, with all the media that goes into it and all the hype and, just the environment. So like, having a Sark that's won a national title calling plays, Jeff Banks, Kyle Flood. I think that could be a really kind of something that we're not talking about enough in terms of, going into this playoff and that being a factor that could play into Texas's favor. But yeah, I mean, just can Texas contain Michael Penix? Secondary's been the issues, when there's been big chunk plays. I don't have any concerns about, Devontae Sweat and Byron Murphy getting theirs and, affecting the game. They limit the big plays and keep these really talented wide receivers at bay. And, it could be a shootout, but, Washington has given up some points too. I don't anticipate Texas having any issue moving the ball. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun matchup. I'm excited to see.
Yeah. Hank, my basketball question for the week. I saw that the Horns got a commitment from Anthon McDermott. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, I was getting questions about that because it looked like, everyone's like, oh, is this a scholarship guy? And I checked in with the source. He is a walk-on, but if you look at his 24/7 page, he had some offers. He had Idaho State, Sacramento State, Texas A&M Commerce, but small forward, 6'5", 185, ranked a 3-star by 24/7 Sports. I talked to one source of Texas. They were really excited about it. If you can get a guy to walk on over, scholarship offers, that's always a good thing. So we'll see. I'm supposed to get on the phone with him later to do an interview. So hopefully we'll know a little bit more about, his thought process and why he picked the walk-on route over the scholarship route. But no, just, that's a big pickup if you can get him in the walk-on capacity.
Yeah. Hey, don't sleep. Brock Cunningham's always been a scholarship player, but he was a 3-star player coming down to Westlake. So he could earn some clock.
Yeah.
All right, Hank, I'm dragging you back into to football. Ryan Wingo. So as we try to project a little bit, how good is Ryan Wingo? Who do you compare him to? We saw Worthy come in as a freshman and almost go for 1,000 yards and set all the freshman Texas receiving records. What's your take on Ryan Wingo?
Yeah, I think my comp, and I've heard like multiple comps for him. And at first I was saying Deebo Samuel, just in terms of like, what he can do, you move around the field, come out of the backfield, split out. But I kind of like the AJ Brown comp better. Someone comped him to AJ Brown, and obviously these are lofty comparisons, but he is a 5-star recruit. We're projecting 24/7 Sports is projecting him to be a top 10 pick. And, guys, what was AJ Brown? He was like top 15, right? So, that's kind of my comp. It is tough to come in and, contribute right away, in a major capacity. But like you just said, we've seen it done before. People can do it. Devontae Smith caught the national championship winning pass as a true freshman and another pass earlier in the season at Mississippi State that season as well. So he was kind of, you can give him 2 wins really. But no, big kid, physical, 10-500 kid, he's got that speed, big playability, take the top off the defense, all things you want to say. And, you could tell why Missouri wanted to keep him home so bad. He is a big play guy, but again, he's young. That's why I think it's, imperative that Texas goes out and gets a receiver or 2 in the portal as well.
Yeah, he was injured during the season, correct? What was that?
I didn't have the exact diagnosis, but he came back right after he committed, or it was like the week of or shortly after he came back and finished the season. They lost in the playoffs fairly early on, but it wasn't anything that was like season ending or anything like that.
Okay.
And Freddie Dubose, he's built more like Worthy.
Yeah.
Smithson Valley. What do you like about him?
Yeah. His tape is just like electric. He really doesn't get a lot of the buzz. I don't know why. He also was coming off an injury, so he kind of went under the radar when he committed. But I think when we talked in the summer after he committed, that I think Worthy was kind of a guy on the roster that you can comp him to. But yeah, big play receiver. I think he'll take a little bit of time to develop. I think I have my list of early enrollees right in front of me. I don't think he's an early enrollee, but that doesn't always mean you can't play early. So yeah, it's interesting. I was actually Smithson Valley's in the state championship this week. They played a playoff game. Their state semifinal playoff game was in Brownsville. Like they play. Like I've never. That's crazy to me. Like they went all the way down to Brownsville to play a state semifinal game. I think Jordan told me it was like the first time a Valley team had been in the state semifinals since like 2006 or 3. So, but they got it done. They won by a good margin, and I forgot what their matchup is in the state title game, but he'll be playing in state. But I like him a lot. Especially if he can stay healthy, I think he could track to be something pretty good.
Who will the Horns be watching in the state championship, from just commits to guys that are just out there, maybe in the 2026 class that's just on the rise? Anybody in particular are going to be looking at?
I think Jordan has something coming out. I need to look at the brackets, but obviously the title games start tomorrow and run through the weekend. But yeah, I need to actually pull up who. I don't have a good list right in front of me, but they'll be paying attention for sure. Obviously, Colin Simmons, that's a no-brainer. Who else is in the title game? Freddie DeBoer. If I had my list right in front of me, I could read you off some names. I just don't right now.
No, man, you're getting after it. We appreciate it. We appreciate you taking some time, Hank.